I suppose I should start at the very beginning about my life. I've come from the northern kingdom of Israel, which under King Rehoboam was split, eventually destroyed by the Assyrians and the population deported as per Assyrian military policy, which pretty much resulted in the so-called lost tribes of Israel. I was eventually a symbol of my people. Can you imagine being the symbol for your people? My childhood wasn't the greatest, and my mother and father, by all accounts, had their own struggles with life. My father's name, Diblain, is plural to the name Diba, which means slander or ill repute. His name alone signifies double layers of grape cakes. They're just pressed together with raisins on the inside. But it also meant that it implied this generation was a sensual, sexual, immoral group of people whose lusts were to worship pagan gods. As I look back over that life with them, I was doomed from the beginning, as it seeped into my soul like sweat. I remember those times when my mother was gone for nights, or when my father took on this role of parenting, and that became a chore for him. Nights of loneliness became dark memories for me, and yet a time when I felt I needed to not only be alone and sought out the comfort in others. That comfortableness in their lifestyle without seemingly no regret, it sounded good. This is what I wanted to do with my life. Some of my friends joined in the deceitful behavior, and yet others, who were the true Israelites, seemed not to want to be in our company anymore because of the licentious behavior that we were displaying. Even though it was evident Israel too was getting a little cocky with their uprightness, and some of them were running after pagan gods as well. The tables were turning for them, and it seemed to me they forgot the faithfulness of how they begun. Have there been times when you've turned away from what seemed so good to go after something better because you could see a different desire in it? Did you stand firm in your convictions and just think about it and say, I'll stay in my faith? Or did you too follow, whether out of curiosity or desire? I chose the latter. I chose hiding amongst secrecy and darkness because of the kindred spirit that seemed to lurk amongst those who chose obscurity. Those who chose to be in the shadows of dimness and specter with no recourse for what they were doing. I chose those dark moments because it was even my time for socializing with others. My father and mother became estranged, and I don't remember siblings, and if there had been, mother nor father admitted to what was happening during those times. There was even some social debate as to whether I was a whore or a prostitute. The morals of Israel at that time were any woman who was sleeping around with other men, whether married or not, was a whore. I interrupted life as a whore, what they called a threat to the social order as opposed to prostitution. As a prostitute, men were allowed socially condoned sexual access to someone who was not their wives. I, however, am described as the wife of whoredom. It wasn't as if I instituted the profession. The remembrance of Rahab, who is clearly named as a harlot, Canaanite, and a liar, it's right there in Joshua 2, 9 through 13, is clearly defined. Yet she was a heroine because she helped the Israelites conquer the land in which she lived. The spies went to her home because people were accustomed to seeing strangers coming and going at all times of the night. And yet, for me, these nights seeking wantonness and desire is what I came to love. My long-awaited desire to be this woman never gave thought to any type of faithfulness to one individual. How crazy would that be? I watched how destructive that was for my mother and father. I thought of being with one individual did happen after, but way after. I was an embarrassment to my family, and yet I wondered if they recognized where my DNA stemmed. Has there ever been a time in your life when you felt ostracized, left out, and abandoned? This is what I felt. What young girl wants to have a reputation prior to a relationship, and especially marriage? Virginity was high in the characteristics of man.